Hello, one and all, and welcome to the Sunday night edition of Opposite Fifth, episode 6, where, as you can tell from our background, we are going to have ourselves a fun retrospective on one Angel Hernandez. It is going to be a beautiful time. As always, I am your host, Trevor, joined by my esteemed colleague Colin. How you doing tonight, brother?
Doing good, doing good. How are you?
Yeah, yeah. It's been a week, and we're just. I think it's something where we've tried to see a lot of the positivity in baseball this year, but I think this is going to be our one turn to just get really salty and just really let that bitterness out in droves when it comes to the man that the disembodied hand is flipping a very distinguished bird to. That would be the epitome of uh, anti-union rhetoric. That would be Angel Hernandez. Yeah, as we were talking beforehand, it's like, yeah, in the general scheme of things, like unions are good. They're great for workers' rights. They do so many good things, but the only bad thing they've done in our lifetime is kept Angel Hernandez in a job for 30 years. So, yeah, I know we both have our own personal anecdotes, but I think we're just going to pull up some of the we'll call them highlights of one Mr. Hernandez's career over his tenure with Major League Baseball. But I would be remiss if I don't let you get some of your own personal memories of the man off your chest before we kind of do this deep dive through the best of the worst.
Well, for someone that has done this job for over 30 years, uh, I just, I don't think he knows what a strike is in baseball. I really don't. Because, as we get into modern technology and the way baseball is presented to us, the viewers at home, we all have a clear sense of the strike zone, and it's kind of highlighted by a box, rectangle box from the letters to the knees. We all know. In that box, we as the viewers are able to see what the pitches are going through that box. Whether in the box, it's a strike. Whether they're outside, it's a ball, right? Everyone gets a general sense. The games that Angel Hernandez called behind home plate was so far out of the box that you might as well be playing a different sport. He just, I think he's one of those guys that is like, he just, he just loved baseball. Cause look, we're gonna do a lot of bashing on him tonight, but you got to admit, he obviously loves baseball enough to stick around when everybody hated him. Like, you know what I mean? Like, when an entire organization hates you and you're still gonna stick it out, like that says something. And so you gotta admire him for that aspect. But he's terrible at his job. Like like everyone wants to kind of go on their refs in the NBA and the NFL, but I don't think there was any. You're not supposed to know these guys' names.
Yeah.
And everyone who's a baseball fan knows who Angel Hernandez is. And that's not good.
Yep. I think that's the biggest part of it is this is a man who has been in some of the biggest positions that the game has to offer, and he has failed in every single one of them. This man has sued the league, had it thrown out, decided to appeal and had that thrown out, and still stuck around for another decade. He has done he has done everything except go into a stadium and just commit arson to like get fired. And they just, yeah, it's a strong union. So they
it's
couldn't
almost
get rid
like
of him until he got rid of himself.
it's almost like major like Rob Menfield and the guys in the office at Major League Baseball are just like his he may be fucking with teams winning and losing, but he's getting eyes on the game, and we need someone like that. You know what I mean? Like he's like the villain for all the teams.
That's it. No, I understand where you're coming from because I guess it's from like a storytelling perspective. I
Yeah,
just man that, but I wouldn't put it past Manfred because he's a guy that has weird visions of what the game of baseball should be. So I'd never put it past him. But yeah, he's a guy that I don't think there's a single team in the league whose fan base doesn't have a significant gripe against him. There's just yeah, and especially when it's come to the strike zone auditing, he is just perennially one of the worst.
the
Yeah,
worst.
there are
The
other that
worst.
are.
I don't know if there's anyone. Well, maybe C.B. Buckner is pretty bad.
There are some other umpires
Again,
that
I shouldn't know these guys' names. That's how
yeah
bad they
yeah yeah
are. You
yeah.
know,
There's some other guys that have had like rough stretches, but in terms of being consistently terrible, Angel Hernandez just takes the
the
cake.
worst.
Yeah.
I think I know, like, in terms of umpires in baseball, I know four, and most of them are not for good reasons. Obviously, Angel Hernandez, T.B. Buckner is another guy who was pretty terrible at the strike zone calling. There's one other guy who retired a few years ago who wasn't bad. And he was a guy, you might remember him. He was an older guy that everyone kind of generally loved. Um, and then, of course, there's Jim Joyce. And the only reason people know Jim Joyce is because he ruined a perfect game. You know what I
and that
mean?
and that's kind of like I'm a big Premier League fan, and it's a big thing where we know all these referees because they make themselves a part of the conversation, and you're going like I don't want to know who's on VAR this week, and just with baseball, like I don't want to know who's at third base this week, and we'll talk about this with Jorge Lopez as well,
Yeah.
because that was something where a guy kind of uh, made a situation about himself more than anything, and then that kind of just spiraled out of control.
It's yeah, we'll talk about
Yeah.
that. I do, it's almost like when Angel Hernandez is is announced that he's the home plate umpire, you almost don't even want to watch the game.
No, you
Because
don't. Yeah.
especially if you're a fan of one of those teams, because it's gonna go bad. And correct me if I'm wrong, but he like he was not invited to do any postseason games, right?
No, I think there was a period of time where I don't think he got past like the divisional series.
Okay, but
I
he's never
think
done
he
a
used to
World
kind of like
Series, right?
it's been a bit.
Okay,
I
all right.
From my recollection, I don't recall having Angel Hernandez part of the World Series for a decent chunk of time.
Because
And
isn't it kind of like football where like if you miss a bad call in the season, your crew doesn't get a postseason game?
it's supposed to be a bit of a meritocracy getting those
Y-
big series, but
Yeah, I thought so.
as we've seen in many occasions, this
It never
I think
works out. Yeah,
more with football than with baseball.
with bait. Yeah,
That doesn't always come to pass. Where kind of like it gets quasi political, where this guy is like, "Hey, well, I got these three refs that are going to make your life a living hell if we don't get into this game. So you got to
yeah.
figure it out." But I think with all of his lawsuits, I don't think he needed to add coals to the oven in terms of making it a big stink about not being given World Series games when he was given a full slate of regular season games, despite being incredibly inept.
My favorite thing about Angel Hernandez, and we talked a little bit about it when we did our pregame, was just the pure hatred he seems to have for the Philadelphia Phillies as a whole, and his little weird rival with Bryce Harper, where so many highlights in his last few years have been him and Bryce Harper just getting into each other's face.
And the one, I think one of the ones that we're going to talk about is when that came to a head with Harper's teammate Kyle Schwarber. That is a piece de resistance.
One of the most egregious calls ever in the history of its 130-year-old sport. It was Angel Hernandez and Kyle Schwarber.
Yeah. There's. I'm just looking at the list right now, and the Schwarber thing and Harper's, we'll call it rivalry with him, featured quite prominently in the proceedings, and with good reason, because they were both just to the neutral. They were funny to watch, but as a baseball fan, you're going, this is just the state of affairs of I don't know why this guy has a job and nobody else can figure it out, and it just causes chaos and frustration across the board.
Well, how Philadelphia fans didn't throw batteries at this guy anytime he went to Citizens Bank Park, it's a miracle. Because it just seemed like every time he had a Philly game, there was an issue. An issue to the point where if you weren't a fan of the Phillies, you knew what happened in the Phillies game. Because Angel Hernandez had such a bad call.
Yeah, he's not going to be getting any comp dinners in the city of brotherly love anytime soon.
No, not at all.
So I think, well, I was going to go chronologically, but I think we should just start there since we've talked about it so much. And it is one of the, everybody likes a good tirade. Everybody likes to see a manager or a player get run and just really get their money's worth in an ejection, especially when it comes in a circumstance of just they're right. Because we've seen plenty of times guys who kind of just I checked my swing or anything. And there's that enough leeway where you can kind of side with the umpire and go, well, I think you did, or this, that, and the other thing, or they cut down to first or third and they call them out, or I think
when it's too close to call, you can see both sides of it.
Yeah, and this was a game between the Brewers and the Philadelphia Phillies.
Yep.
Where it was 1-0 in the ninth inning.
Yep.
And Kyle Schwarber, I think, was either at the top of the list or near the top of the list for the season in walks. Mm-hmm. So more than anything, I think a lot of umpires gave him the benefit of the doubt that he had a good eye.
Yeah.
And Josh Hader threw a pitch that, to say it didn't even come close, it would be like, I haven't come close to going to the moon.
it was so far outside that, and granted, he was trying to get him. He was trying to strike. It was setting the table. It was a 3-2 fastball, and he threw it.
It just cut away. Yeah, cut away.
Yeah, and he threw it away, and good old Angel did what he did best and called him strike 3. and Kyle Schwarber lost it.
Immediately slams his bat down. Ejected before the bat even hit the ground, I think.
Yeah. Oh
and
yeah.
and you know when things are bad when it's a battle of two playoff contenders and one of the main players of the game sits there and dresses you down and bitches how horrible you've been for both sides the entire evening. Everybody knows they're like, you missed up, you missed out, you missed left, you missed right, you missed for both teams. You and just oh god, it
And
was.
if I recall, it was a Sunday night game on ESPN, right?
I believe it was it was I think it was a primetime game. I don't
It was definitely the reason I'm saying it is because there was no there was no what the word I'm looking for bias. There was no bias. There was a neutral play calling, and when you have the neutral play callers, I think it was ESPN. And if you have those guys who don't care one way or the other for the team, they're not the Phillies announcers, they're not the Brewers announcers, they're just covering the game. Say it's a bad call, it's a bad call. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
obviously the Braves, obviously the Philly callers are gonna flip out just as much as Kyle Schwarber was, but for a neutral play calling to get upset at the call is saying how bad that call was.
Yeah, he's a guy that he did plenty to unite fan bases and commentators alike. We're obviously not going to put the video on here because that takes a lot of editing and time, and
right.
Where it's a small enough channel where I don't need to get strike down by Major League Baseball for a clip.
But also, we should
out.
we should also say that this call, because it's one of the more recent calls. I believe it was 2 years ago or last year. It was very recent. It's infamous. So if you're a big fan of baseball, you're very aware
Yeah,
of
just
this call.
go search Schwarber, Angel Hernandez on the old Twitter machine or YouTube, and you will have no issues finding it. It would be a very easy type of deal.
Yeah, you'll definitely find it.
So
and then we go from one NL East team to another, and this is no, I'm sorry, I'm looking at a different list. This is the Texas. You looking at the same list I'm looking at? The Rangers and the
Astros. Are you going to the Wyatt Langford one?
Yes, I am. Yep.
Okay.
So
that is his most recent. We'll put transgression as
April 13th, 2024.
And another thing, go look it up. Just type in Angel Hernandez, Wyatt Langford. One of the touted rookies for the Rangers that came up this spring. Got rung up as what I saw from a post, the umpire auditor, which is,
I'm looking at it right now.
As Colin referred to, the kind of system, like we see the box there, but it's always kind of unofficial, but they have the technology that rules every pitch over the course of the game and gives a score to the umpires of like how bad people missed or how many calls in big spots you missed, so on and so forth.
Right.
There's a lot of here and there. And the three pitches that Wyatt Langford got rung up on, including the final one, combined to have the most distance out of the strike zone in the history of the system.
It's the largest missed call in the history of the umpire auditor.
Yes.
And that call was almost 7 inches outside the box. So, and while inches, obviously you're looking at a ruler, inches isn't much. But if you're thinking about the the square that we talk about, and you take a ruler from that invisible square out, and a foot is 12 inches. So 7 inches outside that box is how far outside the zone those pitches were.
Yeah. Go halfway across your computer
Yeah,
and be like, that's how much he missed.
yeah,
And
it's
that's
and
yeah.
that's but even if okay, we'll say it. Back in our college days, Trevor and I played a lot of sandlot baseball at our college, so we know what it's like to throw a pitch. Yep, there we go. There we go. We know what it's like to throw a pitch from a mound to a home plate. So if you think about if you're standing behind home plate and someone throws a pitch that's 7 inches away from home plate, and you call that a strike. So to the naked eye, even to the naked eye, you know it's not a strike. So to call 3 of those pitches strikes, not 1, not 2, that's LeBron right here,
Not
but
one, not
3,
two, not three.
like, like that's absurd on any level of just being a human being with an eye.
Yeah, and I think that is the biggest part of Angel Hernandez's legacy is how just egregious these calls are. Because if we're going to talk about officiating across all of the like major sports, I would say being a home plate umpire is the toughest job.
Absolutely, I
It's
agree.
something where you got to have snap reaction time. You got to be able to look through a lot of filters. You
I'll
got
do
to
you one
mask.
further. I think any umpire I think how do I want to put that? I think baseball has the toughest call because I want to go back. The Jim Joyce situation with the no hitter. If that's played today with their coach's challenge, he had a no hitter. But to be able to see if a guy steps on a base at the same time as a ball being caught is you got to have quick reaction.
Yeah.
It's like football. I get it. So many things are happening, but like at the end of the day, you're really only measuring if a guy crossed down the field or not. You know what I mean? Like that's what you're measuring. In baseball, like you're measuring what would you say, less than a millisecond of a foot of a ball hitting a glove?
There's a lot of uh I'd say for as slow as the game is, there are a lot of plays where you need to be just there
Quick.
and focused, bang bang. And I think home plate, especially with guys now that routinely throw between 99 and 102 with
Yeah.
ease, it just makes things harder. And I will never sit here and go that umpire an easy job. But if you've been in this for 30 years
Yeah.
and you are still sitting in 2024, your thankfully final season, and you are getting these calls so egregiously wrong. Like you said, when we were playing sandlot ball, nobody's throwing a hundy.
No.
Nobody's really just trying to like paint corners and anything. But even the people that threw the hardest, if a pitch was 7 inches outside, or a lot of his ones that are like 4 inches high, and he's still ringing people up at pitches that are under their chin, even the most just visionless umpire can see these calls that he's missing, and he's missing with consistency.
And
And yeah,
my thing is like, it's 2024. How is he not going back to his own games and seeing how far out he's missing these pitches. He must not be, or if he is, he doesn't care.
That I think that's the biggest part. It's all
He doesn't
hubris.
care.
It's all ego.
Yeah.
He doesn't care that he's bad. He's like, I'm getting those checks.
Do you think
You're not gonna fucking take this away from me.
Here's an interesting question for you. Do you think he was the highest paid umpire? Or I'll do you one foot further. Do you think he was the highest paid umpire in the history of baseball?
I'd say he's probably up there.
Yeah, probably, right?
Yeah, he had a decent tenure, and I'm sure after his lawsuit, there was probably some legally mandated things, even though he lost. Yeah, it's a guy who I think consistently failed up, and that was the only thing he did consistently was get gigs, even though he had no right to have them.
Because that's the thing. Like, he must have had dirt on some of these guys or something weird. Because how is he able to? How did everybody in the sport know how bad he is? And he was there for 30 years. It's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
That's like you going to your job at second for 30 years and still having a job.
It's
So it's almost like it's almost like what I said earlier, where the baseball as a whole embraces him as a villain and kept him around for the drama to get eyes on his games.
that.
I mean, I
don't want to put the tinfoil hat on.
I don't either, but I wonder if his games that he called were the most watched games.
There could have been. It could have been something where they put him in primetime spots, even if it was regular season, knowing that it's going to get the talking heads going. It's going to get the neutral network commentators going. And even if it goes back to the saying, there's no such thing as bad publicity.
Mm-hmm.
Publicity, yeah. All right, I said it right the second time. A little mush mouthed it the first time, but he's a guy that just I think for everything that that can be said negatively about the officiating in the sport, a lot of it revolves around him because there's all of the things. Yeah, all the things that they're trying to do with implementing the pitch clock and all these things that they're aiming to get the automated strike zone with whatever ump bots that they got going. A lot of these initiatives are just kind of underhanded jabs at how bad he was at his job.
Imagine that you have to change your whole structure because one guy was so terrible at his job.
Well, we've all been all right. If you've ever worked at a job where you've gone to the bathroom and you've seen the sign, please don't flush paper towels down the toilet, or don't put such and such down the sink drain. The signs are there for a reason because somebody has consistently done the dumb thing that the sign is telling you not to do.
Right.
I have a feeling if you walk into the umpire's locker room at any of these Major League Baseball stadiums, they have just like and it almost probably looks like an old just pegboard of the thing where people put up their like business cards, and it's just like the angel rules of, all right, if a ball turns into a cricket pitch before it gets to the batter, don't call it a strike. If a ball hits the backstop and the batter doesn't swing, don't call it a strike. And just
but
these
you
super obvious things.
You brought up something interesting though, in the world of the umpires. How do you think he's viewed amongst other umpires? You think he's a hero?
I don't know, because there was a lot of the old heads when he started his lawsuit that were going, why are you upsetting the apple cart? Yeah, and I get it, it's like a discrimination lawsuit, so it was one of those things where he felt he was not getting opportunities, and he was being persecuted for uh,
For being
being
terrible
being
at his job?
Latino. No, but that was his thing, that his demotions was because he was Hispanic and not because he was
Oh,
horrible.
okay.
A different word beginning with H.
But that
He,
would be such an interesting, uh,
I'm sure this next off season, because I think during the season a lot of people are going to be mum about it, just
yeah.
because you don't really want to stir the shit more
How
than anything.
how long do you think it's gonna take Angel Hernandez to write a book?
Probably by the end of the calendar year.
Yeah. If
Will I ever
If
read it?
Jim Joyce
Nope.
wrote a book based on one call in his life, this guy's
Yeah,
writing a book.
especially when he has. If you just type in Angel Hernandez worst calls, and you get 7 pages of Google results before you get to anything resembling spam. Yeah, that means you kind of sucked at what you did.
Oh boy, 7. Oh god. I yeah, good riddance. Good riddance. It's just
Yeah,
you know
I think that is the general message is you I personally hate to see people lose their jobs, have things fail, but there are some people who just, I think, have built themselves up to a point where you don't have that empathy anymore. I
no.
don't want to say he deserves it, but I don't feel sad that he has chosen to retire, because
Well, look, he brought it on himself. When you consistently do the things he did, you can't feel sorry for him.
no, like you can look at him as a person and go, he's a guy that did this for this long, and
Yeah,
like he's choosing to hang it up, and you kind of have to like respect that he's going out on his
on his own terms.
on his own sword, on his own
Yeah,
accord,
yeah.
but also
I mean, he'll be
going,
remembered in the sport of baseball, that's for sure.
yeah, but it's going, he only quit because he knew
Yeah,
that he couldn't be fired,
yeah,
and
exactly.
maybe that Langford thing was the nail in the coffin,
Maybe.
because you can go through all these lists, and I know there's some that don't really trigger the memories, but if you tell a Mets fan that Michael Tucker never touched home plate, they're gonna go, fucking Angel
I
Hernandez.
I I bet
If you're
you.
gonna
Look, I mean,
if you're gonna talk to
the only
a
thing that
White
makes
Sox fan
yeah,
about the double play that never was,
yeah,
if we're gonna talk to you, a Red Sox fan, about the calls at first base, how between the 2018 divisional series, where he had 3 calls overturned at first.
yeah,
We've been talking about how bad he was at home, but that's not a exclusive thing. And as you talk about, go look at the we talked about Schwarber's
yeah.
meltdown when he got ejected. Bryce Harper against the Pirates, I think close to just a year after
After that whole thing,
Schwarber,
yeah,
he it was one of those the old for wrestling fans, the CM Punk line, "Tell me when I'm telling lies." It was just Bryce Harper going, they were like, this is everything that just happened in this situation, and you're throwing me out, even though you are wrong on every single account,
Yeah.
and you cannot. And this is a time where we have replays, where we have checks and balances and stuff where people can kind of go and get the call right. And Angel Hernandez just didn't care enough to use those tools and would just kick people out. And yeah, I love to see him go, and we hope that here at Opposite Field that this is, speaking of wrestling, not a wrestling retirement where he's gone for good and he's not back in 4 months umpiring a divisional series game between one of our favorite teams. That would make me big sad.
Yeah, I just think, I mean, the only thing I can think of is that they would just like, look, man, we'll give you the best benefit package ever if you just get out, just leave.
Yeah,
Just,
there had to have been something on the table
just
where
don't come back. Like, you'll get a nice severance package. You'll be
yeah,
remembered in a bad way, but you know what? You'll be laughing at all those people that hate you because you'll have so much money that no one will care. So just get out. Because if you're gonna retire, why not just finish the season? You know, they must have been like, it's over.
yeah, there had to have been. We know we can't fire you, but
Hmm.
we are now leaning on you that you need to go.
Yeah.
So go
Like,
out with a little bit of dignity.
call
Don't,
him in the office and be like, Angel, look, here's the deal. We have technology now that has proven that you are wrong 90% of the time. So you either retire or you continue to embarrass yourself.
hey, he did it for 30 years. I don't think he
Oh
cared.
yeah,
But
I,
yeah,
I
like I
bet you,
said, there
I
had to have
bet you
been like
he,
a pot
for,
sweetener.
yeah, definitely, and I bet you he loved every second of it too.
Yeah,
You know,
he does give very big troll vibes.
definitely.
And speaking of trolly meme situations, uh, this past week we had a guy. I think speak in a manner that a lot of sports fans found refreshing and disturbing in the same light.
Okay, all right, but we have to talk about that. So we'll get into the whole thing, but I want to talk about the after the game media. It wasn't a press conference. It was a bunch of reporters surrounding his locker.
Yeah, at the locker. Yeah.
All right. I heard I'm on the worst team in baseball. Did you hear that? And there's a reason I'm saying this. Did you hear that? Or did you hear
Yeah.
what he
There's
claimed?
people that have.
Or did you hear what he claimed that he said, I'm the worst teammate on the team?
So that is those. It's almost that thing where that kind of thing from a couple years ago where they do you hear what was it? One of the words was laurel. Like if you listen, it's just like do you
Yes.
hear
Yes.
that deal. It's like,
Yes.
what did you hear? Or
Yes.
is the dress blue? Uh, and
Yes. Yes.
I I heard what you said. I heard him say that
I heard he said he's on
he's
the
on the
worst team.
worst team.
I will correct him. As bad as they are, the Mets are not the worst team in baseball.
No,
They're not.
they've been bad. They were
But they
bad
are
on
not
May.
the worst
They're
team in
not the
baseball.
worst.
Not even close.
But hey, maybe now that he's burnt this bridge, he may be able to go pitch for the worst team in baseball because I'll probably be the only one that wants to bring him in. So, Jorge, you're gonna get your wish, brother.
Okay, so why don't you break this down?
So the series of events is that he's pitching pitching in a game,
Mhm.
and there's a check swing that gets put to the third base umpire, and uh, let's just say that Jorge Lopez is not enthused by the
The call.
proceedings
Yeah.
and begins to jaw jack with the third base umpire, and is not in loud enough and demonstrative enough, and I'd say clear enough with what he was saying for him to be immediately run.
Hmm.
Like he didn't even get that.
Here
And
we go.
I'm looking at it right now, and it took all of like 20 seconds
Yeah.
for him to get sent to the showers.
Yep.
And from there, he takes his glove and underhands it into the stands,
Mhm.
and it didn't like hit an old person or anything. There's
No. No.
nothing. He didn't like hit his
I
tire in the
honestly
head.
look. People are making a big deal about that. Is it any different than an NBA player taking off his headband and throwing it into the crowd out of frustration? Like, I don't think that's the worst. They made that as the worst thing someone could have done.
And I think that's just a talking head
He
thing
was
where
he was frustrated about the call, and he took his frustration out by throwing a glove into the stand. Whatever. You know what? In my eyes, if I'm sitting there, it's a fucking awesome souvenir right there.
and as we've discussed off air before, this isn't like the Patrick Beverly thing where he fucking hucked the ball back at the
Yeah.
fan on
Right.
those
That
things.
was yeah.
He underhanded it. It had some airtime. The people in that row caught it. They had themselves a ball with it, sent it out, social media posts and everything. They had themselves a grand old time. Nobody got hurt.
Nope.
So it seemed fairly innocuous to me.
Yeah.
But when he got back to the locker room after the game and he said what he said, he was asked to clarify his comments. He went through all these things several times. And there was, in my mind, no real question that he was saying he was throwing shade at the organization and
Yeah.
not only saying that he was bad, but the entire team was bad.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
yeah, that's something that I knew was going to kind of
Get him.
bring the old guillotine down.
Yeah.
But
I mean,
it was wild that it happened so fast.
yeah, it was, and especially coming from a guy that he's not a superstar, you know. So clearly he was expendable, you know. When if it was like, for all intents and purposes, let's just say that Verlander or Scherzer was still on that team, and they did what he did, and they said, "I'm on the worst team in baseball." They're not getting cut the next day. They're not. In
No,
fact, what's happening more likely is they're being brought into the front
no.
office and asking, okay, so if you think that, tell me what you would do, and I will surround you with the talent you want. That's more likely. So that's the kind of uh, I guess degrees of stardom in baseball. If you're a no name, you're getting cut. If you're a superstar, they're gonna try to work with you to make the team better. You know.
Yeah.
So, but at the end of the day,
And that's
go on.
oh no, I was just gonna reiterate that yeah, there are different sets of rules for different players.
Yeah.
And that's gonna be in any sport on any level.
But at the end of the day, what he did is what he did, and obviously there were consequences to his action. I didn't think it was uh, as egregious as sports media wants to make it out to, and I'm getting the feeling that you didn't either. But let's shift the topic real quick as we as we wrap it up and just kind of talk about the Mets as an organization. Because we haven't really talked about the Mets at all this season, and clearly for good purpose. But it's odd to me that the New York Mets spent uh, all this money last year to build a super team, and then you hear the stories about Steve Cohen going to Japan to try to get um, the star on their team, and obviously he failed. Um, but I guess what I'm saying is like, what has Steve Cohen done for this team besides bringing old people who don't contribute? They it they haven't locked up uh, what's his face. Oh my god, I can't even remember his name. The first baseman,
Alonso.
Pete Alonso. Um, I don't know if you caught the Harrison Bader comments about how he named his New York Rushmore and not a single Met was on there, even though he plays for the Mets. Like, so, like, it's just, like, how are you excited that Steve Cohen bought this team if he hasn't done anything?
And that's I think Jorge Lopez exuded some of the frustrations that the fan base and probably a lot of those players in that locker room were feeling, where there was a lot of money recklessly thrown at issues, and when things didn't work, they just tried to act like it was a video game and trade all the people they signed and acted like that was going to fix things.
It's telling when you get this new owner who came in, and I remember back in 2020 when we had some of our friends on talking about how excited they were about Steve Cohen buying the Mets and what they were going to do, but the Mets were a more lively team in my eyes when David Wright and Jose Reyes were playing for that team than whatever's going on now.
Yeah, it is a kind of like a sad state of affairs, because I think baseball is better when both New York teams are relevant. Baseball is better when the NL East is not a one horse race, and I think we'll talk about at a later date how we've kind of jinxed the Braves this year. We've sung Philadelphia's praises, but we've kind of put a hex on everybody else in that division.
I mean, baseball is there's a lot of things going on right now in baseball that I think is not normal, and like, okay, I'll give you a perfect example. When my Red Sox are in third place and not competing for a division title, that's weird. When the New York Mets are being called the worst team in baseball, I don't think they are. That's weird, you know? And I think that when the San Diego Padres are spending billions of dollars to get a team, that's weird. And I think it's weird. Look, as a Red Sox fan, I'm supposed to hate the Yankees, but I have said for years my number one team I hate is the St. Louis Cardinals. And they are terrible this year. And they haven't been good for a few years. That's weird. And so for the Mets, I just think there's no direction. That's the weirdest part. Is that you get a new owner with deep pockets who comes in, he makes all these promises that I think you and I knew were empty, but Mets fans bought like a politician, and he hasn't delivered on any of them.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see. The Mets are going to be definitely at the top of the list of teams that talk themselves into being contenders when they should be sellers in a couple in a month and change.
Yeah,
because the way they're going and the assets they have, if they truly wanted to just blow it up, and then go into the tank for 2 years and try to come out the other side with a bit of luck, like what Baltimore did and what Pittsburgh is attempting to do right now. They very well could, because one, they wouldn't have to worry about drafting a guy and him not signing because of financial restrictions, and two, they have it almost endless supply of prospects that if they wanted to kind of just package these guys and then go get somebody together and try to go full San Diego, they could. It's just whether or not you want to have that balance and kind of go for the long term, or compile those assets really quick and do a house flip, so to speak, and go for it in a more short term fashion.
Do you think they trade Peter Alonso?
I think if the right offer comes,
okay. So that's the question. Do you think he's on the block?
I think the only person that's not on the block on that team is Lindor, because nobody will take that contract.
Yeah, they invested so much in him.
Yeah.
That's the craziest thing, too, is that was like the move. Remember? That's what started this whole thing, was getting Francisco Lindor. And do you want to talk about a bust? I mean, he has not been what he was in Cleveland and what he was supposed to be in New York. And to pay him, what did they pay him? $300 million? 270, 280?
Yeah, in the
yeah. So, and I remember, there was a period when he was a free agent, and we were debating whether he was the best shortstop or Fernando Tatis Jr. And obviously,
10 years, 10 years, $341 million.
Okay, but Tatis got more money, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. Okay. So, but that was the start of it. So, but my question is, if you're Steve Cohen and you get this monster contract from a guy who you kind of want to be the face of your franchise, why are you throwing money at guys that are at the end of their career? So instead of trying to outbid, the Dodgers for whoever, why are you throwing money at Verlander? Why are you throwing money at Scherzer? Like, there were guys available that you could have put up offers for. Like, how are you not? And maybe they weren't, I forget. But how are you not in the Aaron Judge race back a few years ago? How are you not in the George Springer race? And maybe they were, and I just forget. But I feel like
they were, and they I think significantly lowballed what the other two teams that ended up being in the final round.
But that's the thing, is that you're the New York Mets. You're Steve Cohen, brand new owner, deep pocket, and you lose to the Toronto Blue Jays. Like, that's a sign of a bad owner right there.
Or if anything, it's just a front office without a plan.
Yeah, exactly. What was their plan? They got the Japanese pitcher who was kind of
Senga.
Who was like an afterthought, right? That was the whole thing about him. He was kind of like not a lot of teams were invested in him, and they kind of like won his sweepstake because nobody else cared.
Yep.
And he's probably, I mean, they might be shipping him off in July.
It would not surprise me.
He might be joining the Dodgers and just making Team Japan.
Oh man, I don't think there that would sit well with Mets fans. I'd love it, but I don't think it's.
But you know what?
Especially with him banged up, that would, I think, even cut deeper, because you're not even letting him come back from a full-fledged injury to.
I guess if you're Dodger fan, if you're a Mets fan, expect your team to look different on August 2nd.
I'd say that's a fair assessment.
Because I like if the Dodgers didn't put a lot of money into Freddie Freeman, Pete Alonso would be a Dodger. I firmly believe that.
And also, if Ohtani wasn't rehabbing and he was pitching or able to be in the outfield, and you can move Freddie to DH or and like kind of shift him with Alonso in that slot. I agree.
Well, actually, they could still do that.
But no, not when Shohei has to DH.
Yeah, he got a hit.
Yeah, he can't play the field yet. So,
but I guess what I'm saying is,
if they decide to go for it next year and just keep giving the old bird that we got up here to the repeater tax.
I guess what I'm saying is like all these big market teams, with the exception of the Red Sox because they're not a big market team anymore. All these big market teams, the Yankees, which I think the Yankees are fine. They don't really need to be doing what I'm about to say. So the Mets and the Phillies and all these guys, they have to start thinking like the Dodgers. Otherwise, they're going to be lost in the shuffle.
Yeah, because it's kind of like new era.
That's a new era. And you know what? It might not work out for the Dodgers, but it probably will. Because if it doesn't work out this year, it's going to work out the next couple of years. And your plan shouldn't be, well, we're going to try to be like the Dodgers, but we're going to sign 40-year-olds. And that's what the Mets did.
Yep.
So, that's my rant about the Mets.
And I think that's as a good a place to end as any. So wherever you have found us on this fine Sunday evening, whether it be Facebook, the YouTube, or Twitch, thanks for watching along. If you get to the VODs of these after the fact, by all means, throw a comment in. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
And yeah, we'll see you next week. I may be from a remote location. We'll see how it goes. But either way, this has been episode 66 of Opposite Field. I'm Trevor. That's Colin. We love y'all, and we'll talk to you again very soon.
Bye.